official apology and reparations, listing crimes including torture, nuclear testing, and resource plunder. Lawmaker says the move sends a clear political message that Algeria's national memory is not negotiable. By the end of 2025, the conflict in Sudan has become the world's worst humanitarian crisis, with an estimated 150,000 lives lost and 16 million people displaced in total, leaving 26 million facing hunger amid famine, disease, and the collapse of health and education systems, urging immediate end to the conflict. Let's listen to the spokesperson for the United Nations, Stefan Dujarric, speaking on Sudan.
The violence is part of a broader pattern that continues to devastate Sudan's health system. WHO warns that attacks on healthcare facilities have reached alarming levels. In 2025 alone, 65 such attacks in Sudan caused more than 1,600 deaths. That's accounting for over 80% of all global deaths from attacks on healthcare in complex emergencies last year worldwide. As the year draws to a close, we continue to urge all parties to immediately halt attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure, uphold international humanitarian law, and ensure safe, unhindered humanitarian access so the year is not marked by the same misery as we've seen previously.
Somali President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud cast his vote in local council elections in the capital Mogadishu today after more than 50 years since the last direct vote. Voting begins across over 500 polling stations in Banadir, with around 503,000 registered voters choosing local council representative. President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud already called the election a long-awaited milestone and urged strong participation. Yasmin Ben Ashur shares more.
After more than 50 years, Mogadishu residents are once again taking part in direct local elections, marking a historic moment for Somalia. Voting began this morning across 523 polling stations and 16 districts of the Bandar region, with many citizens arriving early. Security measures were strong and the process ran smoothly. Around 503,000 registered voters are choosing their local council representatives. President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud describes the elections as a long-awaited milestone, emphasizing that they prepare the country for future national elections. President Mahmoud urges widespread participation, highlighting that active voter involvement strengthens democracy. These are the first direct elections in Mogadishu since 1969, as Somalia had relied on an indirect voting system since 2004. Somalia's people hope these elections mark a new era of progress and stability.
The United Nations General Assembly adopts Resolution 8089 on Western Sahara without a vote. The resolution treats the issue under decolonization, taking note of the Secretary General's last report. The UN reaffirms that the question of Western Sahara remains a matter of self-determination. A Moroccan appeals court in Marrakesh sentences 37 young protesters to prison, terms ranging from 1 to 6 years. The convictions relate to peaceful youth protests held last September, with fines also imposed. Right groups report mass and arbitrary arrests, including minors, and denounce violations of fair trial guaranteed. Leaders of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger announced upcoming large-scale operations by their joint military battalion. The force, expected to reach 5,000 troops, aims to combat armed extremist groups in the Sahel region. The alliance says it is strengthening security cooperation after ending ties with former Western partners. A high-level ministerial delegation arrives in Bashar to oversee preparations for the launch of iron ore exploitation at the Garaj Bilat mine in Tindouf, Algeria, under President Abdelmajid Tebboune guidance. The project, including the Tindouf-Bashar Railway, reflects Algeria's push for economic sovereignty and diversification beyond hydrocarbons. Details on this topic with Widad Alawa.
A historic chapter in Algeria's industrial development is unfolding as a high-level ministerial delegation arrives in Bashar to observe preparations for the official launch of iron exploitation at the Garj Bilat mine in Tindouf under President Abdelmajid Tebboun's guidance. Idris Sassi, Algerian international finance expert, explains.
Garaj Bilat is kind of sleeping giant that finally waking up, and it's a decades important project for Algeria. When we check the global strategy of Algerian state in the market of raw material globally, and of course at the regional level, this is the main cornerstone for Algerian economy diversification. The potential of this project is very important. The reserves are very important, and Algeria can be the third player worldwide and the third alternative behind Australia and Brazil for important suppliers like China and other strategic partners of Algeria. I'm talking about China, but there is Turkey, there is Italy at the Mediterranean level, which is a new very important supplier for steel in the region.
The mine's inauguration ceremony, marking the first transport of Garj Bilat iron to Bashar via the Tindouf-Bashar Railway. The delegation is reviewing preparations for the mine and the associated railway, which will serve both industrial and passenger transport. Plans were previously revealed for a new railway to carry phosphate to Annaba. This milestone signals Algeria's pursuit of economic sovereignty and diversification beyond hydrocarbons. Algeria hopes these developments will inspire lasting national progress and prosperity.
OPEC Fund and the African Development Fund approved nearly $2 billion to support fragile African states. The funding, covering 2026 to 2030, focuses on energy, food security and sustainable development, whereas digital payments expand rapidly across Africa, boosting small businesses and rural inclusion. Concluding this harvest with sport news, at the Africa Cup of Nations, Algeria defeated Sudan 3-0 yesterday. Matches are going to continue tomorrow as teams compete in the group stage across host venues. Angola versus Zimbabwe in Group B match in Marrakesh, Egypt versus South Africa Group B fixture in Agadir, Zambia versus Comoros Group A game in Casablanca, whereas Morocco versus Mali Group A host nation match in Rabat. That's all for today. Thank you to paying attention to the fullest. This harvest was directed by Muad Bab Ahmed, observed by Malika, control board with Yusuf, and streaming with Islam. Thank you for all, and thank you for observing to the very last with Ifriqiya FM, the voice of Africa.
Ifriqiya FM 100.9